A man approached me at the bus station when I was 15. He then stalked me and tried to kidnap me. This happened in my hometown, which had about 100,000 people. I was 15 years old, from the suburbs, and attended a high school in the city. English is not my first language, so I apologize for any grammatical mistakes. I had finished class, and for some reason, I decided to walk to the main bus station instead of just waiting at the nearest bus stop. I stood at the gate where my bus line, number 15, started. Another bus line, number 17, also started from the same gate. After waiting for about 10 minutes, a man asked me if bus number 17 had left yet. I said, "Yes, I'm sorry, you've just missed it." The man, who looked to be around 30 or 40, then introduced himself to me as Mark. He stretched out his hand for me to shake. I didn't want to be impolite, so I did. I introduced myself as Maya. My name is not Maya. It felt bizarre that a grown man was introducing himself to me at a bus station. I may have been 15, but I knew better. He asked if I had just finished school. I said yes. He asked me which school I attended. I lied. He asked if I was going home. I said no, even though I was. He asked where I was going. I said, to a friend's house. My bus pulled up and I got on. Strangely, this man, Mark, got on as well. I knew for a fact he had asked me if number 17 had taken off yet. If he'd originally planned to take number 17, there was absolutely no reason for him to get on my bus, number 15. They didn't have a single stop in common. I sat down, and he sat down next to me. He asked me which year of high school I was in. I lied and said I was a junior, though I was actually a freshman at the time. He said I looked too young to be a junior. I said I heard that all the time. He asked if I had a boyfriend. I said no, and he replied that I should. I then asked him where he was going. He said he was going home. I asked if he hadn't planned on taking number 17. He said no and told me he lived at the very end of bus line 15. That was odd. I'd never seen him on the bus before. He asked me if I was on my way home as well. I said no, I was visiting a friend. Looking back, he probably knew I was lying. I thought he believed me and really thought I had the situation under control. I should have gone up to the bus driver and told him what was going on. I didn't because I wasn't scared enough, and I didn't want to make a scene over nothing. There were plenty of people around, and while he was strange, I thought he was just a harmless, lonely weirdo. We reached my stop, but I purposely missed it and got off at the next one, thinking I'd fool him and just walk home a bit farther. To my surprise, he got off as well. I asked him where he was going, and he said he wanted to walk me home. Again, I told him I wasn't going home, but to a friend's place. He said that was fine, and he'd walk me there. I said he really didn't need to, and in a stern, irritated tone, he told me to shut up and walk. There was no one else on the street. We were the only ones who got off at that stop. I was alone with this strange man who had followed me from the bus station. I couldn't go home because I didn't want him to know where I lived. I started panicking. I didn't know what to do, so I just froze and stood there silently. In an instant, he went from weird but chatty and smiley to telling me to shut up. And I went from feeling in control to realizing I'd really messed up. He put his hand on my shoulder and told me he didn't have much time, so we should get going. I wanted to tell him he clearly did, but I didn't want to anger him. So I just nodded. He told me that if I was good, I didn't have to be scared of him. I lied and said I wasn't. He asked if that meant I planned on being good. I said yes. He made me repeat it in a full sentence. Yes, I will be good. I began walking. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. He walked with me, his hands still on my shoulder. I was never religious, but I remember praying that I wouldn't pass out. My heart was beating so fast and breathing was so difficult, I was sure I was about to collapse. Then I spotted an older man tending his garden in front of a house. That's the last thing I clearly remember. I have a vague memory of running. I was later told that I had been screaming for help while running toward the older man, while Mark ran off. The older man called the police, who then contacted my parents. The police couldn't do much but take my statement. Since my parents both worked and couldn't take me to and from school, they bought me a phone that very same day. This was in the 90s, when mobile phones were a luxury. I wish the story ended here. After the incident, I only ever got on the bus at the stop right in front of my school. A few weeks passed, and I did so like I did any other day. We locked eyes as soon as I stepped on. He was on the bus, with the biggest grin on his face, like he couldn't be more excited to see me. I was so creeped out, I immediately got off and ran back into the school. I called my mom in tears, and she told me to find a teacher to walk me to her car when she arrived. The school was then notified of the situation. After that, he was spotted walking around the school several times, sometimes a few days in a row, but sometimes not for weeks. The police were of no help. They couldn't do anything until he actually hurt me or showed up on school property or at my home. I spent the rest of the year waiting in school until late afternoon, so my mom could pick me up after work. We always took a very long route home. I now know she was making sure we weren't being followed. My parents eventually had me switch schools. Thankfully, he was never seen in my neighborhood, and I'm pretty sure he never found out my name or got my address. I only saw him one more time. I was 21, back in my hometown for summer break from university. I saw him in a grocery store in a completely different part of town. He didn't recognize me, didn't even look at me, but I recognized him instantly. Where I live, there's no convicted criminal. Lists like in the US cases like this aren't reported, so I never found out his full name. I have no idea who he is or what he may have done in the past. I don't know what he would have done to me. I believe he was mentally challenged, saw me, liked me, and followed me. My mother believes it was much more calculated, that he had a plan, and that he knew exactly where we were going. My dad still doesn't talk about it. I'm just happy he's out of my life.